Hello. Welcome to the Weir Tales, a look at stories from the past of Sunderland and Wearside as told in the pages of the Sunderland Echo. Mysteries, hauntings and the unexplained. Wearside has its marquee names for this kind of thing. There's Sid James, the carry-on film star who's thought to haunt the Sunderland Empire. There's the Called Lad of Hilton Castle. There's Victorian serial killer Marrianne Cotton, or possibly the spirits of her victims, said to linger at the Ship Isis pub. Some of Sunderland's phantoms, though, are, well, less substantial. If it weren't for their stories haunting the pages of the Echo, they might have long since wafted away like smoke. An eyewitness account of some very traditional sounding spook comes from an edition of the paper from November 1955. The story begins evocatively. The rain was lashing down at 1 o'clock in the morning when the Foy boatman left the lookout in the North Dock to get a pail of coal. As he was coming back, he saw a figure in oilskins and sou'wester walking towards him. "Nasty night," said the Foy boatman. There was no reply. And as he spoke again, the figure walked past him and through the closed wooden door of the shed below the lookout house. The Foy boatman dropped the pail, ran into the lookout house, and told his 3 colleagues that he had seen a ghost. And one of his friends sitting at the window confirmed that he, too, had seen the figure in oilskins and sou'wester. He looked like a lifeboatman, they said, and the shed into which he walked was a lifeboat house more than half a century ago. After that, not one of the 4 ventured outside again until daylight. That was a week ago, the story says, and the ghost has not walked since, although the story has spread around the docks. From the pages of the Echo in November 1973, we find this story of a purportedly haunted cinema. A projectionist who believes he felt the presence of a ghost among the rafters of the cinema where he works has refused to go into the section alone again. For 23-year-old Brian Quinnan was so shaken by his experience during a morning maintenance session that he was unable to continue work that day, and the showing of the scheduled film was taken over by his apprentice. "I wish someone could prove me wrong, but I am convinced that what happened to me did actually occur," said Mr. Quinnan of Alfred Street, Millfield. Mr. Quinnan was working on his own on lighting maintenance in the void of the Odeon Cinema, an area between the ceiling of the main cinema hall and the rafters, where the house lights can be lifted for repair. He was working on his own when he felt the area of a gantry he was working on grow cold, and then heard shuffling footsteps behind him. "I was worried then, so I went back out and got another employee to come in with me. That was 17-year-old James Slack of Hilton Road, Sunderland, Mr. Quinnan's apprentice." Mr. Quinnan and Mr. Slack then went back into the void and both heard shuffling noises among the rafters. Then, while I was working along the end of one of the gantries that led to a light, there was a rush of an icy wind behind me and I was pushed as though someone was rushing past me, said Mr. Quinnan. "I half fell over, but grabbed a barrier rail to steady myself. By this time, I was physically shaking. I couldn't keep my hands still, and several members of the staff saw me in that state. I couldn't go on, and Jim had to take over in the projection box that afternoon. I have honestly never been as scared in my life, and I have refused to go in there on my own again. I never believed that this kind of thing happened, although some of the staff joke on about the cinema being haunted by a former manager. But now, I just know that this thing happened, and I can't explain it. I have never experienced anything like Brian," said Mr. Slack. "But when I went back in with him that morning, there was definitely something wrong with the place. It was cold, and there were noises." The cinema manager, Mr. Ray Cook, confirmed that the other members of staff had reported strange noises in the cinema, all of them in the void and projection room, and most of them on mornings when the cinema was closed to the public. "I have been assured by my assistant manager, as I was away at that time, that Mr. Quinnan was in a distressed state after the incident. He certainly strikes me as a sincere man, and certainly believes in what happened." An edition of the Echo from September 1966 documents a haunting in Sunderland's new arcade, which existed between 1874 and 1972, and linked St Thomas Street and High Street West. The story tells us, "Even the Dalmatian watchdog of caretaker Mr Joe Parkin will not face up to the ghost of Sunderland's new arcade. The footsteps of the ghost, heard trailing across the floor of a storeroom in a toy shop in the arcade, have shop assistants baffled and scared." In a bid to get to the bottom of where the sounds were coming from, manageress Mrs Christine Priest and her assistant Linda Casey tied a piece of strong thread knee-high across the storeroom. The footsteps tripped across the floor and both dashed upstairs to see what was there. They found the thread broken and the atmosphere was chilly. "The air was unnaturally cold after each visitation," said Mrs Priest, who added that many other unexplained incidents had taken place recently. These included the switching off of the radio in the shop when no one was anywhere near it. When 15-year-old Pat Hudson, an assistant in a nearby shop, heard the footsteps while in the toy shop, she was so scared she couldn't move. As for caretaker Joe Parkin, the story tells us, he was once a skeptic, but not now. "I've heard the footsteps quite clearly," he said. He recalled being awakened one night by a ghostly hand stroking his face, and his Dalmatian watchdog will not even go up the stairs to the storeroom. With the arcade itself demolished more than 5 decades ago, the question arises, as it does from many such accounts, if ghosts are real, where do they go when they are made homeless? That is a question which also arises with our next spooky story, an account of a one-legged ghost who caused many a sleepless night for the residents of an address that does not now exist. These events took place in the 1930s, but were recounted by Sunderland Antiquarian Society member Sharon Vincent to the Sunderland Echo's Sarah Stoner in 2014. By 1932, heavy footsteps and repeated wall banging at 53 Northumberland Street had become just too much for Joseph Clinton and his wife to cope with. The creepy noises would sound out between 11:30 p.m. and midnight each night. It sounded to the couple as if someone was walking up the stairs with one boot and one boot off, but there was nobody there. Once the footsteps reached the landing, the wall banging would start. After that, the footsteps would retreat back down the stairs again. Mrs. Clinton became so fed up with the noises that she even asked her neighbours, if any, were cleaning their carpets at night. The answer was no. The couple had to put the noises down to cats. That was until a night came when Mrs. Clinton was fetching water from the tap in the yard and caught sight of what she believed to be a ghost. The silent figure appeared to be a man wearing an overcoat. Terrified, the woman dropped the water and ran inside. As tales of the Northumberland Street ghost started to spread, so the Echo featured the story, sparking supernatural interest town-wide. The Clintons revealed to the paper that, as Catholics, they didn't believe in the spirit world. But as the problem had now become so bad, they had begun to think that there was no other explanation for the racket but supernatural activity. Indeed, the rapping had been so loud one night that the walls of the house started shaking, making it impossible for Joseph to get any sleep. Eventually, the Clintons were forced to stay with relatives just to get some peace, leaving the other tenants of number 53 to cope with the noises. One upstairs resident, John Roper, revealed he distinctly heard footsteps on the stairs as he waited up for his wife to return home from the hospital. Upon further questioning from an Echo reporter, the frightened chap revealed that he had initially thought it was his wife, but discovered no one there. The noise seems to be caused by a man with a wooden leg. A heavy noise with one foot or stump and a softer noise with the other foot, he added. Another tenant said, "I have been all through the war and served in a submarine, but I could not, for my life, have opened the door that night and gone out onto the landing." Finally, in February 1936, a concerned friend of Mr. and Mrs. Clinton asked a spiritualist to visit the house and help clear the place of restless spirits. The ghost revealed to the medium that his name was John Henry Turner and that he had been wrongfully accused of a crime in his lifetime. Apparently, he had committed suicide as a result of this accusation, and now he was stuck on Earth, forever searching for a woman called Annie. Annie, he said, would be able to help him clear his name, and only then could he rest in peace. Records fail to reveal if the chat with the medium helped put the ghost's mind at rest, but it appears he quietened down after his antics hit the headlines. Northumberland Street ran east-west between Crow Tree Road and Union Street. It was demolished at a time of slum clearances and town centre regeneration. We end on one more account of the supernatural, more uplifting in tone, if a little harder to grasp. In an edition of the Echo from December 1950, Frederick J. Crawley, Chief Constable of Sunderland from 1915 to 1925, recalls the strange case of Mary Jobson. As he relates, many people of my period in Sunderland will recollect my deep interest in psychical research. My daily researches during the past 30 years mainly engaged in reconciling animism with spiritualism, because the phenomena are definitely there, have satisfied me that life continues beyond the grave. Crawley tells us that when 13-year-old Mary Jobson from Bishop Wearmouth became ill in 1839, remarkable phenomena occurred in her presence. There were heavy poundings, pattering of feet, ringing of bells, and clashing of metallic substances. At times the noises changed to soft and delightful music, which centred in the invalid's chamber, yet resounded through every part of the house. It seemed as if a vast crowd of people were ascending the stairs and thronging the room. During the progress of these phenomena, a human voice was frequently heard, protesting against the form of medical treatment and recommending herbs. We're assured the case is excellently documented, with full corroboration by several doctors, and that Mary made a miracle recovery moments after this disembodied voice dismissed all her family temporarily from her room. At a distance of nearly 2 centuries, who's to say how big of a pinch of salt we need to take this with? But if a spooky visitation can be said to be of its time, that's how we'd categorise this one. Good night to all of you, living or otherwise.